Dennis, can you explain who you are, the vector you're on, and I know you're Canadian, but you like this 250 thing, right?
Yeah. I'm here for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a professor of nuclear science and engineering at MIT. I was the director of the Plasma Science and Fusion Center at MIT. I'm also a serial tech entrepreneur as well too. I just added that to my LinkedIn. It was very exciting. I decided after starting 3 companies and the class that I teach at MIT, in fact, I just found out last week that the 6th company was actually just created out of that in fusion.
And one of your companies is Commonwealth Fusion.
Yes, that was the first one.
And why is Commonwealth Fusion so special, and what do you think its legacy will be as we think 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years into the future?
Well, actually, it's interesting to ask the audience. So do you know that the world's first prototype fusion power plant is being built about 25 miles away from here? Oh, good. I'm happy to see that. Lots of people. Yeah. So that's why it's special. It's because it was a new approach to fusion that put a lot of the different pieces together that had not been put together before, which was not only does the science have to work, but you actually have to do it at a scale and a cost that would eventually make fusion practical, and a few other features that basically made it modular so that you could also imagine building hundreds of these or thousands of these eventually. Yeah, and it was born literally, and as a lot of the theme of this is around Massachusetts, was a very interesting team that put this together. I don't think anybody actually grew up in Massachusetts, but we were all attracted here by places like MIT, the entrepreneurial ecosystem that was here, and we named it Commonwealth for a reason, right? It was
Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Well, I mean, it was interesting we actually had two names: Commonwealth Fusion Systems or Albany Street Power and Magnets. I kind of liked the last one a little bit. It was a steampunk to it. And Albany Street is where the Fusion Center is at MIT. But in the end, Commonwealth, it wasn't just a nod to Massachusetts and to my Canadian heritage, but actually to the concept of Commonwealth, which is the idea that if you actually provide the right kind of structure, political, economic, that all lives are actually, and wealth is actually shared across this. And it was very important to me.
So MIT SPARC, and maybe define for the video what SPARC is.
SPARC is no longer an acronym, and I'm not allowed to say it. So it had something to do with small and being privately funded or fast as possible.
What do you use now?
Yeah, no, we just use SPARC, right?
Okay.
And the name is appropriate, right? The idea is that, so what it is this is the device that's actually probably about 80% complete right now. Out in Devens, Massachusetts. And its purpose is to not only demonstrate energy gain, namely that you get more energy out of the fusion plasma than you started with, but it's also doing at a obviously commercial scale. It's going to produce enough fusion power that it would be able to light up a fairly sizable city if it was doing that.
So next year it's the first plasma device.
Yeah.
So by the year 2030, what has fusion proven? What do you predict, or what do you hope? You don't have to make a prediction, but what do you hope fusion proves, and what does it do to the energy bill, especially behind all these data centers that everyone's talking about?
Right. So it should be, if all goes according to plan, that by 2030 we'll see a demonstration of something that starts to look like what a fusion power plant would be. And we're actually starting to see the commitments, both financially and locally, about actually constructing these that they would start to put power on the grid. It has to AI and to energy bills. You have to realize it's a very nascent technology, so we're still working through the aspects about making it economically attractive. But AI is a particularly interesting and very recent advancement in this, because AI will almost certainly be the first customer for fusion, because it's almost exactly tuned up to what AI needs, namely local high power density sources that also don't have vulnerabilities due to supply chains in the fuel, because the fuel is basically free and available everywhere. And simultaneously, and in fact in my class, a lot of my faculty members at MIT are very worried about how students are quote unquote cheating with AI. In my fusion design class last fall, knowing how hard fusion is, I walked in and said, you use AI all you want, because this problem is so hard, don't worry, you're still not going to solve it even with AI. So it's a very interesting combination, actually, but that often happens in technology innovations, that things that come in from the outside actually start amplifying what is established science and fields elsewhere. So it's a very exciting time in fusion.
So you talk, and I've heard you talk about this, about building thousands of these plants to change the world. With limitless clean power by mid-century, what changes about how and where people live? And there's, in a follow-up, there's been a lot of talk about putting data centers in space. Is your technology part of that, or does your technology mean we actually don't necessarily need to do that? So that's a follow-up.
That's a follow-up. Okay.
And you could pass on that if you don't want to take that.
Well, fusion is unique. I mean, it is literally the energy source of the universe. I mean, my comment is
like star on Earth.
The universe already voted. Like life in the universe occurs because of fusion in the center of stars, right? So this has always been a dream of humanity to bring fusion to Earth. But the realities of fusion on Earth, the way that I describe it, it changes our relationship to energy. And you don't probably think much about energy, because it's a silent, it's a very hard to describe thing, actually, because it's abstract, it's around. But go look at one of the most convincing plots, is that the use of energy has the strongest correlation to human well-being, humanity's well-being, like period, right? And this is not whale blubber, by the way, right? That was a great one. So what does this look like? Is that I'm not sure what it looks like, because it's such a profound change to how we access and distribute energy in our society and in our economy, that I think what we do know is that it's going to bring about another revolution in humanity's evolution. That's the way, not to be too grandiose about it, but every time we've unlocked a fundamentally, particularly expandable source of energy, it has just changed our society so fundamentally. Here comes another one.
Like fire. I mean, I saw 2001.
In fact, ironically, if we end up in fusion, because it's literally the fire of the stars, that if we end up going in a circle, that we're here because we, at some long time ago, we actually figured out how to control and tame fire. That if in the end we bring this all back around, it's pretty prophetic, like justice, I would say.
So once energy stops being the constraint, what does our species attempt that we cannot imagine today? Oh, wait, actually, you didn't answer the...
I know, yeah.
You want to pass?
Okay, fusion on Earth is hard enough already, so it'll just give me a few... In fact, well, I shouldn't say that. One of my fusion design classes, we looked at a fusion power plant to colonize Mars. So, okay, so we did look at it. It's harder than it is on Earth.
But that's on a planet. That's not...
That's on a planet, and to get there, actually, as well.
But you're not someone who subscribes that your device is going to be in space tomorrow. Like
no.
You're focusing on just getting it to work on Earth.
It's a hard enough problem.
Thank you for that. Anyway, All right. So, but back to my last question. Once energy stops being the constraint, what does our species attempt that we cannot imagine today? Or are you too busy building the device?
No. I think there are a few aspirational things, like there should not be a single person hungry on the planet. I think that would be a good idea, right? How about we stop fighting over access to all of this energy? I mean, that's my goal. I've seen enough about human history. We'll probably find something to fight over. But maybe it isn't about access to one of the most important fundamental resources that we need to all have great lives, which is energy. And I think that will be a really profound moment in humanity. And then we start thinking about being even bigger, because when you've got access to an energy source like this, we can think bigger than just the planet. But we should probably take care of this place first.
So Einstein, was about theories. I think he really thought about society and the science that he unleashed. Do you have any similarities to Einstein?
Oh.
No, and just how you're thinking about this technology, or you too busy in the weeds? Because he became very
I think a lot about it
because
there's also unintended consequences of when we bring forth a new technology, because they're often very hard to see, right? that when you brought about a technology revolution with respect to access to data, like you couldn't foresee like the social problems that like social networking could bring about or the advantages that it would have. So in fact, recently in my career, I've really moved much more into thinking about the economic impacts of something like fusion and the challenges that economics, because in the end, economics is about how collectively we use resources to move towards a common goal. And it turns out economics is a much bigger hurdle, in fact, to fusion than I'd imagine. But I also found it's like, oh my gosh, if we actually get over the hump economically, it's not just about access to energy, it's actually about access to all the things that energy makes. In fact, one of the most important numbers that you should remember from this is 15. What is that? That's the ratio between the American gross domestic product and the amount we spend on energy. And in fact, every modern society has a multiplier that looks like that. So everything you see around you, all the good things in your life are due to energy use. That you can prove it. And it's like, and we have built this extraordinary object, a modern industrialized society, that actually amplifies the worthiness of energy into products that make all of our lives better. So when you think of all the great things we can do, it's more than just energy use. It's all of the amplifiers that come with this. And I think about that amplifier all the time. And so when we see it this can be an economic amplifier that actually takes off and puts us in a completely different place as a society.
So I've talked to Sir Tim Berners-Lee a little bit, and a highlight of his life was when England got the Olympics, and they did the opening event, and they celebrated him. If Canada gets the Olympics, do you think they should celebrate you?
No. It's not me. No, you have to realize fusion is this extraordinary effort across multiple institutions and teams and now companies. I will take some credit about helping to get some of those started, but this is a worldwide effort. It's one that we should all be paying a lot more attention to. And if there's any young people in the audience, please email me. I've never refused a meeting with a student in my entire career because it's an important part of my job.
This is going to be out on the internet, you know.
Absolutely. I've never refused a meeting with any student at any level.
So last question. TEDxBoston's produced 5,000 talks. You were one of the first 10 back in 2012. How did that experience galvanize some of your thinking? Was that helpful, or was that a distraction? May have put you back a little bit.
It was wonderful. Thank you for that. In fact, I went back and looked at that. I couldn't believe how both optimistic and about how naive I was about how hard it was going to be to get going. But by the fact that what I showed, in fact, was a picture, if you remember, was at the Lincoln School in Brookline. And I said, we could actually put an object out on the front lawn circle of this that would power all of Brookline for years. And I think that there was a level of disbelief onto that. There is now a plan to build that thing. And we know where it will go, and we know almost most of the technology that will actually go into that. So thank you for that opportunity, because that was a part of just even getting people to be aware that something like this could be possible. And we have to just sometimes believe in these things to actually make them get going.
So if you have a diary, write in it that you heard from Dennis Whyte today. I told Canada they should honor him when they get the Olympics. And if not the Olympics, anytime. But I'm glad we're honoring you today on this celebration of what the future holds. Ladies and gentlemen, not Captain Fission, but not Captain Fusion, Captain Fission. Is that right?
Fusion, yeah. Okay.
All right.